I'm going to be doing the kind of top-level hand-wavy stuff, and then my colleague Marius is over here. He's going to intersect. And just to, so I'm Mark Hahnel. I'm the founder CEO of Figshare, and Marius is our full-stack developer, one of our full-stack developers, JavaScript enthusiast. Just by show of hands, who here is an academic? Okay, that's pretty much everyone. Who here thinks they have an above-average knowledge of Jupyter? Quite a lot. Okay, so you probably want to hear more of Marius and less of me. That's good to know. But so I'll tell you, for those who don't know what Figshare is, by the way, I'll get to that. I just wanted to set the scene a little bit about why we're here, why we're talking about what we're talking about, and what we're trying to achieve. So the idea here is reproducible research is really, really hard. There's this idea about fair research and findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable research. And if you go back to the first ever academic paper, you can see that in the last 350 years, we haven't really achieved that much. That's a lot of words and static images on a page. And this is eLife, which I'd say is about as technologically advanced as any publisher is. And it's words and static images on a page. So, except that page is now on the web, so everyone can access it. So we haven't come that far, but what are the reasons behind that, and what are we trying to do here? So, at Figshare, what we do is we think about what is everything outside of the peer-reviewed article. So I started off, I was an academic myself. I did stem cell biology. I had lots of videos, lots of data sets that didn't fit into the traditional publication. And it wasn't because I thought all research should be reproducible. It's good for the ethics of humanity to get all of this data out here and build on top of the knowledge that's gone beforehand. I just spent my weekend working on that video, and you're telling me I can't publish it anywhere? So I just started making my own stuff available online. Other people started making their own stuff. If you build an open platform, we ticked a few academic boxes. It's free, you upload content, you make it publicly available, you get a DOI, we track the citations, we give it an altmetric badge, we make sure it persists. But you find that other people come along and start using it for whatever they want to get credit for. So we had people putting up posters and code and spinny molecules. We had people putting up, some dude called Fernando putting up his IPython progress reports. So people use it for whatever they want. And as a result, our sustainability model is working with publishers, institutions, and to some extent funders on building academic infrastructure that supports these fair principles, And so one of the most recent things we've done is, you may have heard this morning, we heard the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative talking about, Jeremy, talking about bioarchive, the biological sciences, and we have the archive for physics. Obviously, it's been around for 20 years. The week before last, ChemArchive got launched, and we're actually the infrastructure for ChemArchive. And so we found ourselves in this really weird place where we've developed little bits of functionality to provide open research information, and we've actually built this kind of white labelable mini publishing platform that supports a lot of files. And that's kind of the crux of why we're here today. So we've got this mini publishing platform, which they use for ChemArchive. So it's basically throw up some files, add some metadata, and then you've got somebody can check them, so basic peer review, change the metadata. It's any file, so in this case it's a video. You can see on the right they can edit it, they can peer review it, they can add comments, etc., etc. And then if you make it publicly available, if you accept it, it's published. So you end up, this is an example from ChemArchive. This was really cool because it went live, and we said it's for preprints, The system itself supported any research output. And what we found people doing is people uploading their preprints, but also all of the data that goes with it. And so when we talk about reproducible research, I kind of see this as a gateway drug. You have all of the files. You can encourage all of the researchers to make all of the files available from their research, but that doesn't really explain the context behind it. If we wanted to explain the context behind it, you could use something, I don't know, like Jupyter Notebooks that has a lot of files grouped together with some context. So I suggested to Marius we do this, and he's going to tell you about the trials and tribulations of how easy that actually was.
Thank you very much, Mark. Well, hi everybody. My name is Marius, exactly like Mark said. Well, I should start off by saying this. The first time I've heard about Jupyter was back in, well, actually 1 year ago, back in August. And that was actually Mark coming up to me and telling me, we have to implement this. Okay, let me research that. Well, how much do you need? I don't know. I started researching everything. The first file, the first notebook I actually came across was Jupyter reach output by Minar K or Benjamin. I think he's around here with us. It's something. It had actually the best output, all of the outputs that Jupyter could actually have within a single file, and that's basically our test file. Anyway, I came back to Mark and told him, well, we could do a preview on picture, but that won't be executable. Okay, how much time? 1 week. And for the entire thing, well, about 2 or 3 months. Okay, let's go with the 1 week. So basically, that was our first implementation back in September, which looked exactly like this. You'd say, everything looks perfect, everything looks nice, we have the preview. What we did was actually NB-convert the IPy notebook and spit the HTML into an iframe. After that, render it on the website. Everything was great until we got to this part, when all the latex styles were basically gone, missing, because when we render it, we've rendered it inside an iframe with limited access. Why? Because of security issues of JavaScript running user content. That would be a nasty impact on our website. Afterwards, we started seeing something like this, module name NumPy, which was actually because when we converted them, it was outside of your environment. It was on our own servers, and we had no idea what dependencies there were inside the notebooks. Also, because of the JavaScript being disabled inside the iframe, things like this couldn't be available. And neither the links. Basically, those should be the links within the article, but you can't access them from within. You would actually have to go outside, and I'm going to show you exactly in a few minutes. Because of the iframe, this is how our console log actually looked like. All of the errors. Well, we are trying to, we found a security issue. We basically said no to some content on that page. To sum that up, the actual issues of this type of preview was 40% of the previews were broken because of this. Well, actually, that's the user input. They said, my preview is broken, fix it. You have non-interactive mode, basically no executable style, no nothing, because we weren't running any type of Jupyter service. And the security issues of XSS, cross-site request forgery, and all of that was solved theoretically by integrating everything via a limited access iframe. Now, going back to the executable prototype, 6 months ago, Mark came back to me and said, okay, we've done the short part, now let's do the full part. Of course, he came to us 6 months ago, we started to implement it 2 weeks ago. Up until that point, we actually was able to run some Jupyter containers. At this point, I think I should actually start by going to our actual Open Jupyter portal, which is only on our pre-production server, so this isn't actually online yet, but I have prepared here a Jupyter demo. And as you can see, I have 4 files, and the 5th would be the actual notebook. I'm opening it, it's loading the entire iframe, and the only difference right now would be this button over here, Run Jupyter. It was the worst button ever and the best technical decision ever. But we said, let's make it clickable. And inside an overlay, we actually rendered the entire Jupyter tree, and beneath this, on the back end, we actually started the Jupyter container. From the technical perspective, for the moment, we have only 10 slots available for each container. Basically, each article opens up in a new container only for you. If 2 or 3 or 5 users open up the same article, they're going to receive the same container. But that's something else to talk about. Okay, and right now I can actually go and run my notebook. And it's loading. And from here we can actually start reproducing data. Okay, right here for everybody to see, I have this New York image, which is actually downloaded within the container from the actual article, and I can rerun it, and I can go further and do all sorts of stuff. Basically, all the things that you could do with the Jupyter, we've placed it bare bones, exactly as it is. We haven't changed anything within that layout. Neither the UI, that's something for the future. And also, I would be able to actually go and start running some, okay, JavaScript 95, let's define it, yeah, from here. Okay, and the JavaScript part, LaTeX part, and everything else that we need. We actually have also access to our own root system within the article. Basically, all the files here are the ones within the article. Now, going a bit further and skipping the demo part, what we have, run everything inside the container for each article, secure the containers for the users not to be able to actually access with that piece of code within the Jupyter notebook to access the containers or outside, because that would be a security threat. And another thing would have been for the JavaScript part to actually split the domains. The user content would be on a separate domain called Feature Labs, I think, and our actual domain would be Feature, the actual Feature domain. And right now, everything was integrated via a normal access iframe, which basically allowed us to run everything with JavaScript, everything interactive, and we could go further with the widgets and so on. Now, the technical challenges. Some of them we actually were able to solve, some of them couldn't for the moment. First of all, the security issue solved. We split the domains, everything was done. It took us about 3 days, hackathon style, basically 24 hours, but everything worked. Authentication via Fixture. Basically, we have all over the internet how to authenticate Jupyter Hub with GitHub and sync the accounts between these two. But with Fixture, we had to do ground up. The scalability issue. Again, this is something that for the moment we're running only 10 containers, but this should become very dynamic and automated. It's still a work in progress, but I think for the moment what we have right now, it's pretty decent. Full integration with the Fixture platform. This is something that we really want to do. Basically, right now, you have access only to your article. But what happens if we could give access to some other guy's article, which is already public, integrate and actually be able to import some code from that part? That would be cool. And the last one was the dependency help. Basically, we never knew exactly what dependencies were required for each notebook. This is something that it's still technical difficulty, but it's on our roadmap for the future to actually go ahead. And right now about the future development. In the near future, what we actually want to achieve is to enable the CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete, inside the IPython notebooks. Why? Because basically right now all you can do is just upload files on Fixture. You can't edit them. What about actually giving the user access to edit within the container and afterwards save it back as a new version inside Fixture? Also, what would happen if I would, for instance, I already have a container open and I just want to create a new Jupyter notebook inside it or upload some other stuff from within the container. That's the kind of stuff that in the near future we're working on to improve and enable. Afterwards, it would be a project-based Jupyter container, not only the article as I was saying, but the entire project. A project basically contains multiple articles where you can actually ping some of your colleagues to actually collaborate with you on the same project. And it would be better to actually have those containers very secure, that would run only for you guys within the project on a private level until you finish up everything and agree amongst yourselves to actually publish the project. After this one is the integration with the submission mechanism that Mark was telling you about, and also with the curation mechanism. These two are going hand in hand, basically to actually show this type of thing. This is the curation system, curation mechanism for the Open Jupyter platform, where some guys, they have submitted some files, and theoretically, I'm one of the curators right now. And I could go, view a request, check everything inside this article, because it has also description categories and other metadata, but I can see right here that this file isn't quite well documented. That means I could say either approve, but because it's not well documented, I'm starting to say, well, yeah. Really? Hello? Hello? Oh, sorry. Is it on? I have no idea. Hello? Hello? Anyway. So, documentation, where is it? And just reject it. Well, as you've seen, this Jupyter notebook is only the preview. We would like to integrate the entire system, the entire mechanism, to actually be able to give access to the curators to either change a typo here and there, or actually be able to edit the entire IPython notebook with what they want. Okay, getting back to the presentation, the last and most probably the most important thing would be to actually implement a Fixture virtual file system. This would allow us to do crazy shit, tons of crazy shit. Well, just think about that. You could actually be able to open a container using 5 or 10 or all of your articles within the Fixture and have access to them to actually link between them and do whatever you want. And in the end, your article will actually get linked citing the actual articles that you have imported within your Jupyter notebook or whatever stuff you did there. Right now, we're lacking a file system. That's why we're trying to open containers only for an article or only for a project-based. But in the end, we could do all sorts of stuff. Okay, other great ideas, but these are not for the near future. It could take us 1 or 2 years. It would be to implement a dependency detection mechanism to actually open containers on the fly without dealing with the dependencies of your IPython notebooks. This is something based on a graph system that would add up and up more dependencies to your containers to cached containers inside our backend. And another thing would be to actually start hacking the front end of the Jupyter in order to have real-time collaboration, because you have a project, but you want to work 2 or 3 of you on the same page, and you want to see exactly what the changes are. This is something we're thinking about. We're just investigating. We're not sure about this one. Further, I'm going to get it back to Mark to have the final thoughts on this thing.
Thanks, Marius. Ooh, I'm loud. So a couple of main keynotes there. Does everyone love the way that Marius says Jupyter? He refuses to change it. He's aware that he does it, and he refuses to change it. And the other thing there is, as I say, we found ourselves in a place where we had lots of the parts together that could create this Jupyter publishing platform. At the same time, you know, we just dipped our toe in it and we went down the rabbit hole and found out there was a lot here. And so this session is as much about discussion. And so if anybody does have any thoughts and conversation starting pieces, we can take them offline or we can talk about them now because I think we're going to have some time. But there's a lot of stuff going on with Jupyter Hub and Jupyter Labs and things like this that could be pulled into this. My thing at the beginning was, how can we bring academic publishing and Jupyter together? Because, as I say, people are already, the thing with Figshare is you can go upload any file format, make it publicly available. So people started uploading Jupyter notebooks, IPython notebooks, and we were seeing them being published. Of course, because it's already set up for non-traditional research outputs, there's this idea that people are uploading data sets, and people are uploading videos, and people are uploading code. So these Jupyter notebooks, I heard the other day there's 1.2 million Jupyter notebooks on GitHub. About 20% of the people using Jupyter notebooks are academics. So, 240,000 notebooks. That's, PLOS One is the biggest journal in the world. It does 40,000 articles a year. So there's a lot of content there, but I'm guessing a large amount of these Jupyter notebooks are like this little script that I ran over my data to try and find something out. There's not a lot of them that are going to be full articles. So that's kind of where I wanted to start the conversation is, do we even need this? Do we think that people will ever get to the point where they say, I want to publish my Jupyter notebooks in the form that they are at, and that is the publication of the future, and people are going to do that? We're seeing people are doing books, so obviously people have the patience to do this. We know it's not going to be everyone, but if there's 8 million people using the software already, then maybe. One of the other parts about this is the one on the left was a couple of weeks ago in The Guardian, I think, and it was is the staggering profitability of scientific publishing bad for science? The idea here being that Elsevier have a profit margin of 40%, which if you look at billion-dollar revenue companies, there's not many. Walmart is 2%, Elsevier is 40%. And so Jason Hoyt, who runs an open access journal called PeerJ, went on a beautiful Twitter rant and said, yeah, it's all good, blame the publishers. As a publisher himself, this is a dangerous move to do. He said, the problem is the authors, the problem is the academics. I was like, way to win over your fan base, but your customer base. But he said, people publish in high impact factor journals. So you saw Marius was demonstrating a platform that was called Open Jupyter. And because of what we have right now, we could set it up. So openjupyter.com has a place where people come along, submit your Jupyter notebooks as published articles. We have a curation system, a peer review system that people can peer review from, and then you make them publicly available. We have free offerings because we make our money elsewhere. Our business model is working with the publishers, working with the institutions. So we could offer that for free. And you could have a free publishing platform branded like that. The question is, what else should we be doing? Should we be doing that at all? Is that something that should be handed off to another system? Who's going to peer review it? Because we saw a lot of people here were academics. Who here is a physicist? 4 physicists, 5 physicists, and you probably work in different fields. And you probably, being here at JupyterCon, you're probably the most likely to be able to peer review Jupyter notebooks in physics on the planet. And there's 5 of you. And and you're probably not all wanting to go and sign up and become peer reviewers, and you probably work in different fields. So how hard is it going to be to find peer reviewers on such a specific idea? Because I was talking to Adam from UCSD, and this idea that Marius touched on it as well. That's a Jupyter notebook, and this one is beautifully called as well, containing all the analysis to reproduce plots and statistics. A, that's a really bad title. But B, I mean, it's got no context whatsoever. There's this big idea about fair data, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. The idea behind that is if you get to the point where you make everything fair, then you can build on top of what's gone beforehand. You don't have to email people for their data so that you can build on top of what's gone beforehand. But if you get this, it's like, I don't know what's going on. It's just a load of scripts. There's no context there. And we did a workshop the other day about fair, and we said, fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable for humans and for machines. That's the goal. We worked out you can kind of get fair for humans, just about, and then for machines you can get fa, which is findable and accessible, because there's always that subjective human element on how, how much metadata do I need to reproduce this, or even interoperate with it. And then you've got this one, which is nicer, right? It's got actual documentation, and it says, these are the steps needed to reproduce this. How many people here would do this one? And how many people here would do this one? Because everyone's already got enough work on their plates already, right? And now you're telling us that we need to start documenting our academic research in the same way that we document our code. So how many people are actually going to do that? Where's the incentive here? Because the other thing here is, who here would prefer a publication in the to-be-announced, non-existent, imaginary world of Open Jupyter, or Nature, where you submit a Word document? Put up your hands if you prefer Open Jupyter. Lies, lies. Oh, you're not a scientist, okay. So yeah, so this is what I'd like to base this discussion on. There's two sides to it, of course, because as Marius said, there's a lot of technical challenges. We changed problems to challenges, where we might have some, it'd be good to hear people's ideas about you could solve that problem using this, or if you went along here, you could find this. So we'd love to have those conversations, but we'd also love to have some thoughts on, should we even bother? And how should we bother doing it? Because at the moment, where we're working already, as I said, any chemists in the room? Yeah? So you can go to ChemArchive, the new chemistry archive, and you could submit a Jupyter notebook, and it'll handle it, and it'll preview it. So you can already publish Jupyter notebooks, and you get a DOI, and it counts the citations, and you can use that to apply for grants. So you can already do it. So should we just stop there? And with the publishers, what we do is we provide infrastructure for their supporting information. So we work with Nature and Wiley and PLOS and all of these people. And so if you submit a paper to Nature, which I know you all want to do, except for the one guy who's not a scientist, then if you submit a paper to Nature and say, here's all of my files, including my Jupyter notebooks, that'll actually render in the supporting information section of Nature publications online today, because we support that functionality. So 2 questions here. How far do we go in terms of building something for the Jupyter space in academic publishing? And how far do we go in terms of actually building cool stuff on Jupyter notebooks, because there's a lot of problems there technically as well. So I'm going to invite Marius back on stage. We want to say thank you for your time. There is a few minutes for questions if anyone's got any, but thank you very much. If nobody has any questions, we can also... Okay, we got one.
So I'm actually giving a talk immediately here afterwards about how to peer review Jupyter.
No way. We all come together, we can achieve great things. Not about science?
For humanity.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
Well,
But it's, that's just a comment that is relevant, I suppose. But the question I have is, the framing of the challenge with peer review is that you can't scale it up. Because I think you're totally right. There's enough of the expertise, the literacy problem, right? People who know how to actually review this code is 5 people in physics. But is maybe that, you know, is the traditional model of publishing in and of itself actually the issue here? That maybe we just need to, you know, this notions of post-publication peer review, and, you know, just not, like, we're trying to squeeze in like a new paradigm into the you know, into the old mechanism of attributing value and prestige to academic and scholarly work. And maybe we need to break that into something different.
That's very true, and I agree. I think you see good examples. Faculty of 1,000 Research has a post-publication peer review model, and we also get it at Figshare.com because everyone who uploads stuff to Figshare makes stuff publicly available. Somebody looks at every file to make sure it looks academic. But if you upload an astrophysics preprint, it looks academic. We're a team of 30 people, most of whom none of whom have a physics background. So people say to us all the time, well, how do you know people aren't just, you know, how do you know it's not rubbish? Or how do you find the good stuff then? What is the good stuff? And maybe the future of journals is just finding the good stuff and building on top of it, or you know, and highlighting it like a newspaper. And the other side to that is, if we have people, you know, searching for content, citing content, that's automatically a filter. If it's not got enough metadata, people write on the comment section, I can't use this because you haven't included this file. You know, public shaming is great, but the problem we have at the moment is encouraging people to see the benefits of making all of their research outputs available in the first place. So, yeah, I'm going to hang around and see your talk and see if you can solve that problem for us. No? Okay. Spoiler alert. Okay. Yep.
I have a whole lot of comments. Maybe this would be better in a conversation setting. But to start off, this sort of cuts across both problems about adding things on top of getting into the Jupyter front end and how you present it. Right. So one of my favorite extensions in Jupyter that you can install that I'd like to see in other things that interact with Jupyter is just hiding all the code cells. Right? So you can have 2 different modes. So it's sort of like your building mode and then presenting to people who may not necessarily have the understanding, or you don't want to look at all the code, you want to look at the rich media around it, sort of explains it. As far as peer review is concerned, so there's more than one. I mean, you can have notebooks that do data exploration or all sorts of utility style things, but may not necessarily be the notebook that is the sort of paper part of that research project. And in order to peer review it, I think it's really going to be not a technical challenge and more about best practices. So, you know, if somebody wants to submit a project, it could be this private-public paradigm that you see on other platforms like GitHub or what have you, where you could submit it for peer review, and it'll just be like every other major journal where there's a panel of experts that are editors on that journal, and they recirculate a manuscript to whoever's going to look at that, and then they provide feedback, and then you remediate it, and so it kind of cuts against the preprint thing. So it could be you could still put it up there as being public, but it could provide a sort of more contained interface in the beginning where people who are experts in physics could look at the front-facing part of that notebook without the code cells, maybe, and provide feedback in the same way they always have for the last 20 years. And so I guess what I would say is I don't think it's as big of a challenge as we might be making it out to be. There might not be technical challenges, more as here's how we're going to set up this sort of workflow around publishing it. It's more of a best practices issue and not a technical challenge.
Yeah, you could also have, again, I hadn't thought about this before, but you could just have round 1 is just checking the code, and then round 2 is just normal peer review where they get the hidden code blocks and it just reads like a paper. Yeah, which is a good idea. somebody should start a company for checking academic papers for Jupyter. Yep, sorry.
The other thing I would say is that it's not like this needs to be a jumping straight in the deep end all at once, right? I think that this is going to be both a technological and a cultural shift, and that's going to take a long time for none of us. And so it doesn't need to be that like we need to have perfectly replicable Jupyter notebook hosted articles now. I think that like, the kinds of stuff you guys showed, it can already provide values in other kinds of ways, even if it's just like a supplement or something like that. I don't think that we need to start off by replacing the very old publishing industry, but start to give people like hints and ideas and start to build practice around using these things in an effective manner.
Yeah, and I mean, if I'm honest, we are going to continue down. My question of should we stop? It's like we're gonna finish off the executable. Well, then we might do my binder, but so yeah, and then we'll see what happens, I suppose. And there was a question at the front.
Yeah, you might have just mentioned it, but I was going to ask if you've heard of Binder.
Yeah. So actually, there was a session before where there was talk about what is the citable unit. Once you get into this space, what is the citable unit? Should it be something like Binder, which is essentially just a Git repo, and you cite that? That's the package, as opposed to Jupyter, which has all of the dependencies, which might get lost. So I think there's, yeah. The good thing about these file types we want to make all files executable, and it's very hard if you've just got a CSV to add on some Plotly interface, because it's like, compare column A versus column C. It doesn't work for every spreadsheet, But things like this, if it's .ipymb, you know what it is. And if Binder probably has a similar thing, so you can treat them in specific ways. I don't know if you got any thoughts on that.
Well, it depends.
Good contribution. Yeah, sorry.
My second technical thing was, are you familiar with the Jupyter Lab Google Drive extension?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah. Well, that was the question. It was a yes or no, right?
Yeah, because in terms of like the collaborative features and things like that, we could just adapt that system as the collaborative writing and then submission system.
Yeah, but that could take a while.
Yeah, it's all going to take a while. That's your problem. Yeah.
So I was just going to say, it was mentioned that a lot of this has to come from a cultural shift. As an educator, is there anything we should be focused, like imparting on the students to make these transitions easier in the future?
From experience with Figshare, the thing we've learned is you need to explain the incentives. I was chatting to someone before about the idea of citing. People should be citing content and explaining why they're citing it. You should have a drop down. I'm citing it because it backs up my data, or to affirm it, or this is rubbish. But why? Ain't nobody got time for that. It's the idea that I'm already have enough administrative burden. Anything that I do like that, I need to get, what do I get out of it? So the idea here is that you get citations for all of your work, for all of your research outputs is a nice thing. But the same thing on the other end now, we're seeing the funders, the NSF, the NIH saying, you need to have a data management plan. And if you just say, my data's in my publications, you are saving time in the long run that way as well. I think we might be running out of time, but 2 more minutes, okay. For a what? Yeah, so if you wanted to, you can go to figshare.com, upload your content, make it available. Pardon? Yeah, you can do it. Tomorrow? Well, with the Jupyter stuff, the point we're at is the preview phase. The executable bit is on stage at the moment. So you can upload them, you can make them publicly available, and they'll preview, but they're a bit broken. But if you download the original, it'll have the original, and you can cite them, it gets a DOI.
I'll throw a quick link on there. The logo and trademark stuff, you want to
Yep.
going live with OpenJupyter.
Of course, yeah. This was our we added some nice colors and everything. So that's not live on the internet.
No.
That's on staging. It was a hypothetical idea.
No,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why I said we haven't yet changed anything inside the front-end UI or something like that.
That's
We
fine.
basically just
We're way
placed it there.
We're way less protective of what the thing is versus
Yeah, yeah,
source point of view.
completely.
Now, when we're getting public, it's gonna look
Yeah,
brilliant.
but the logo Open Jupyter and the name Open Jupyter, yeah, yeah, yeah. We can happily hand over. Okay.
So if you have any other questions, you can torture them in the break.
Yeah, and thanks a lot for coming. Appreciate it.